There was a list on the fridge, written in her handwriting, pink Sharpie, bubble letters. Almond milk, scented dryer sheets, toothpaste, take out trash before Sunday, fix laundry room door. Don't forget to breathe, smiley face. It was still there when I got home from the locksmith. I stood in front of it for 15 minutes. Not moving, not touching, just staring. The list felt so casual, so normal, so stupid. Like she thought she'd walk back in here Sunday night, kick off her shoes, tell me about some overpriced spa treatment, kiss me on the cheek, and pretend the last 72 hours didn't exist. But they did. And I had the photo, the ring, and the burn mark on my hand to prove it. I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't wake up Friday planning to throw out everything she owned that smelled like coconut lotion. I didn't plan to go digging through a sealed shoebox in the attic, or find out which hotel had room 402 booked under her name, or watch from across the damn parking lot as she stepped out in the dress I bought her for our 5th anniversary, holding hands with someone who wasn't me. This wasn't revenge. It was revelation. Friday at 10:21 a.m. I was refilling birdseed in the backyard and Googling how to stop birds from pooping on deck. Friday at 4:07 p.m. I was in aisle 7 of Home Depot buying a lock I hoped she'd never see again. She told me, "It's just a girls' weekend. I need a reset." And somehow, I believed her. Because I'm a fool who fixes things. Squeaky doors, jam drawers, loose handles, marriage. That's who I've always been, the fixer. But when I saw what I saw, when I heard what she said in that voicemail that she thought she deleted, when I connected the receipts, the deleted texts, the mystery cologne, and the stupid manicure with initials I didn't recognize scratched into her pinky, I stopped fixing. I started erasing. Not loudly, not dramatically, not with yelling or broken plates or public scenes. Silently, efficiently, with a smile that I hadn't worn in months. So yeah, she had her girls' weekend. I had my burn her out of my memory weekend. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I did. Because I'm not proud of it. But I've never felt more alive. I wasn't snooping. At least, that's what I told myself. Her phone was on the nightstand Thursday morning, plugged in like usual. She was in the shower, humming to some obnoxious pop song that made me want to pull my ears off. I walked past it to grab my wallet, and then it buzzed. Once, then again, then a third time. Same number. No name. Just 213 unknown. I didn't touch it. I just looked. Until the voicemail icon popped up. That stupid little red bubble. I left it alone. For 2 hours. But it clawed at my mind like a splinter in the brain. It's insane how fast trust can start to dissolve. Not even by facts, just by feeling. Something about the number. The timing. The forced humming. The missing intimacy. The weird extra-long hug goodbye 2 nights before. It all began to swirl, fast and toxic. And then, late that night, after she fell asleep early, claiming exhaustion from prepping for the girls' weekend, I sat on the edge of the bed and picked up her phone. Password. Easy. She never changed it. Still my birthday. I didn't plan to open the voicemail. I swear I didn't. But when I did, the voice on the other end made my blood run cold. It was a man. Calm, confident, almost lazy in how casually he spoke. He said, "Hey Ratch, Friday's still good. I got the cabin key, brought your favorite wine, and yeah, I shaved. Happy now? Don't forget the earrings. You know which ones." Then a pause. Then a chuckle. Then, "Don't worry. He won't know. You're good at this. Real good." Click. I sat in the dark, her phone in my palm, screen dimming as my world twisted sideways. The silence of the room felt deafening. She was curled beside me, arm over the blanket like a child, breathing slowly, like she hadn't just shattered everything I thought I knew about our marriage. But here's the kicker. 10 minutes later, she stirred, rolled over, and whispered, half asleep, "I love you." I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I stared at the ceiling fan and replayed that message in my mind over and over until the words carved themselves into the inside of my skull. By morning, I had a plan. It wasn't a rage-fueled, smash-the-house kind of plan. It was organized, quiet. Ironic, maybe. She was going to her little retreat up north? Perfect. Because I was about to have my own kind of weekend. One that started with a call to a private storage unit, a locksmith, and someone I never thought I'd need. My estranged brother, Grady. The last time I saw Grady, we were throwing punches in my mother's backyard because he stole my debit card to buy a drone. But Grady's the kind of guy who knows how to do things, shady things, without questions. I told him I needed a cleanup. He didn't ask what kind, just said, "Send me an address. I'll bring the tarp." He thought I was joking. I wasn't. This wasn't about hurting anyone. No threats. No scenes. No drama. I wasn't going to confront Rachel. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I was going to surgically, ruthlessly, and perfectly remove her from every corner of my life, like she was never here in the first place. If she was going to treat me like a stranger behind my back, then I'd become one in her reality too. Because after that voicemail, after that sick laugh and the way he said, "You're good at this," I realized I'd been sleeping next to a stranger for far longer than I wanted to admit. I don't think people realize how loud silence gets when you've made up your mind to end something. That Friday morning, while she packed God knows what into that pale green suitcase she always used for spa weekends, I stood in the garage with the door open, staring at the shadows. It was still early. The birds hadn't even committed to singing yet. Everything felt paused, like the world was holding its breath for what I was about to do. I called in sick to work. Not that anyone cared. My job's mostly spreadsheets and cleaning up after junior analysts who think a pivot table is some kind of exercise. I sent the email and shut the laptop, then opened the cabinet where we kept the camping gear. That's where I'd hidden the old prepaid phone I bought 2 years ago, the one Rachel didn't know about. I bought it back when I was planning to surprise her with a weekend in Vermont. That trip never happened. She said she had meetings. The phone still worked. Still had 1 bar of signal. I used it to text Grady the words, "Needed spotless. Starting today." 15 minutes later, he pulled into my driveway with a van that had no markings, music too loud for 7:13 a.m., and a smirk on his face that told me he thought this was just another one of my crisis moods. To be fair, I've had a few. But this wasn't that. He stepped out, looked around like he expected to see a dead body in the bushes. "You bury something?" he asked. I looked at him and said, dead serious, "Worse." He followed me into the garage. I handed him a list on yellow notepad paper. 31 items. Each one surgical. Each one something Rachel had touched, gifted, bought, framed, or infected with a memory I didn't want anymore. His eyes widened. "You want me to clean out the house?" "Just her. Only her. Like she never lived here." He blinked. "You're serious. I'm done being a museum of her lies." And with that, he nodded, tossed his vape aside, and got to work. While he started on the attic, I made my way into the bedroom, the one we used to share. I opened her side of the closet, took down the jackets I once complimented and she never wore again. I took down the silky robe she said she only wore for me, but apparently wore on trips now. I dumped everything into a pile on the floor. Then came the photos. Our trip to Asheville, gone. The blurry one of us at that street fair where we pretended to dance to that awful jazz band, trash. The framed print of home is where the heart is that she insisted on placing over the bed, gone. Turns out that heart wasn't here anymore. Grady made surprisingly fast progress. Every 30 minutes, he'd poke his head out and give me an update. Shoe racks cleared. Makeup drawers boxed. Letters burned. "You want the pillows?" I told him yes. Even the pillows. Especially the pillows. Around noon, I heard him cussing from the garage. I walked in and found him sitting on the concrete floor, holding something I didn't expect. A leather-bound notebook. Not mine. Not something I'd ever seen. "What the hell is this?" he asked, handing it to me. I opened it. My name was on the first page. And what followed? It wasn't poetry. It wasn't love letters. It was a list, her list, of things she hated about me. I'm not kidding. Page after page, bullet-pointed. He always breathes too loud when he eats. Why does he wear the same 3 shirts every weekend? Not ambitious enough, just wants to stay in his bubble. Thinks he's romantic. He's just needy. Grady is hot, in a gross way. I sat down on the cold floor, the notebook trembling in my hands. This wasn't just venting. It was obsessive. The last entry? Just a few days ago. Wish he would find out. I think I want him to. My heart didn't just sink. It disintegrated. She wanted me to discover her. She wanted me to implode. To break. To give her an excuse to blame me for walking away. But I wasn't going to break. I was going to disappear so thoroughly, so cleanly, that she'd never get to use my name as an excuse again. She'd wake up Monday morning thinking she was coming home to a weak, sad man, the same one she'd been talking about in her little pink Sharpa diary. But what she'd come home to would be nothing. No key would fit the lock. No photo of us on the wall. No husband waiting with groceries or questions or pain in his eyes. Just emptiness. And maybe, if I was lucky, that would hurt more than any confrontation ever could. According to her text to Emmeline, she was supposed to be at a spa with eucalyptus steam rooms and bottomless mimosas. But on Saturday morning, as the sun hit the cabin's frosted windows and silence crawled across those rented wooden walls, Rachel started to realize something was wrong, and not in the dramatic, oh no, he's mad kind of way. No, this was the subtle kind of wrong. The kind that grows in your stomach before it hits your mind. The kind that starts when the phone stops buzzing for no reason at all. She'd texted me twice that morning. "Morning, babe, son, hope you're relaxing too." And then, an hour later, "Everything okay?" No answer. She probably thought I was just giving her space. Being chill, like I always was. That was my role in this marriage. After all, the calm, safe cushion she always landed on when her world got inconvenient or boring. But I wasn't her cushion anymore. I wasn't her anything. And if she was starting to feel that silence press against her throat, that was by design. She didn't know yet that the locks had been changed. She didn't know the neighbor she occasionally waved to, the one who always wore overalls and fed stray cats, had been paid $60 to record her reaction when she tried to open the front door Sunday night. She didn't know I'd already called our bank. She didn't know I'd removed her name from everything I legally could and flagged the rest for fraudulent spousal activity, a phrase I'd never imagined myself saying until I heard it come out of my mouth like someone else had spoken it. But most of all, she didn't know I'd canceled her return ticket. Because yes, her little cabin spa weekend wasn't upstate. It was down south, in a gated Airbnb with a hot tub and a king bed and a single vehicle in the driveway that didn't belong to any woman I knew. His name was Austin. I got it from the voicemail, from the cologne, from the Venmo note she forgot to make private, for the wine you spilled on my chest, LOL, face blowing a kiss. Austin drove a silver BMW with a license plate that started with 6 years. Austin had a profile on LinkedIn that described him as a freelance investor. That's not a job, by the way. That's just code for, I've made enough money to screw people over on my own schedule. And Austin had no idea he was being followed. Because I didn't go home after removing her from the house. I went there. I didn't confront them. I didn't storm in or scream or demand answers. I sat in a coffee shop down the block with a camera zoom lens, the kind Grady borrowed from a friend who shoots wedding videos. I watched from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. as they laughed on the balcony, drank from 2 wine bottles, went into the hot tub twice, and finally, around 6:43 p.m., disappeared inside, lights dimmed. That's when I stood up, threw away my cold coffee, and walked slowly toward the rental. I didn't knock. I didn't break anything. I simply taped the envelope to the front door. Inside it was a photo, not of her, not of him, of me, smiling, next to her mother, at our wedding. And underneath that photo, handwritten in black marker, "The lie always comes home." I walked away before they could hear a thing. Back in the car, my hands shook as I turned the keys in the ignition. Not from fear, not even from rage, but from the sheer adrenaline of letting go so completely that I didn't recognize myself anymore. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't worried about what came next. I was planning it. And Rachel, my Rachel, was about to spend the last night of her affair in a bed that no longer belonged to any version of her life. Rachel always took the 3:45 train home on Sundays. She liked being back before dark, in time to complain about Monday brain, while she sat on the couch, folding laundry and pretending not to scroll Instagram. I usually met her at the station with her favorite drink, oat milk chai with 2 pumps of brown sugar and extra ice, even in winter. I'd carry her suitcase without being asked, kiss her forehead without being thanked, and listen to her stories like I hadn't been invisible all weekend. But this Sunday was different. She stepped off the train alone, wearing that smug exhaustion people get when they've done something selfish and convinced themselves it was self-care. Her lips were still slightly pink from whatever gloss she used. She wore sunglasses even though the sun was setting. Her phone was in her hand, and I knew, because I was watching from across the platform, that she'd just try to text me again. Still no answer. She pulled her suitcase behind her like she had every other time before, and it probably didn't occur to her, not even once, that the wheels of her little designer luggage would keep rolling into a life that didn't exist anymore. I didn't follow her home. Grady was already there, 3 houses down, sitting in his borrowed truck, engine off, watching like it was some kind of social experiment. I told him not to record. I didn't want this to go viral. I wanted this to go quiet. She walked up the porch with her usual grace. The kind of grace you rehearse in mirrors before dates, even married ones. Reached into her purse, pulled out her keys, still distracted by her phone. Then came the pause, the click that didn't click. She tried again. Another key, then another, then both hands on the doorknob, as if sheer force could make something recognize her. I can only imagine the moment she noticed the wreath was gone. The shoes by the door? Vanished. The doormat replaced. The one she bought on Etsy that said the Simon's Nest had been replaced with a plain black rubber mat. Efficient. Meaningless. Cold. She knocked. No answer. She knocked harder. Then started ringing the bell. I wasn't inside. No one was. I was in a rental 2 blocks away, watching from my laptop as the camera feed caught her confusion grow into panic. After 13 minutes of failed attempts, she called my phone. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail, voice trembling just a little. Hey babe, I think something's wrong with the lock. Or did you change it? Just call me, please. I saved the voicemail. Then, at exactly 5:47 p.m., she walked around back, maybe thinking I was in the yard. Maybe hoping she could use the spare key under the potted plant. Gone. Then she tried the window. Locked. The bedroom window? Also locked. She stood in the backyard for a long time. Motionless. Her hand on the glass. I could almost feel the moment her pulse shifted. The moment she realized this wasn't a glitch. This wasn't me being petty or late or distracted. This was deliberate. Calculated. Surgical. And then her phone buzzed. Not a call. Not a text. An alert. Bank of Riverland. A recent login from a new device has been detected. If this was not you, please secure your account immediately. She stared at it like she was trying to read through it. Then another one came. Joint checking access revoked. As of 5:48 p.m., your shared account privileges have been modified. And then another. Pending credit card freeze. A request has been submitted. The screen lit up over and over again in her hand, and I watched it all unfold like theater. She leaned against the fence, slid down to sit in the grass, staring at the house she used to own, the name she used to sign, the life she used to curate. She didn't cry. Rachel doesn't cry unless someone's watching. But I'd be lying if I said it didn't shake me, just a little, to see her so still, so completely disoriented by the absence of control. She had taken me for granted. She had lied to my face and kissed me afterward. She had mocked me in a notebook like I was a child's science experiment. But now she sat outside a locked house with a dead phone, a frozen credit card, and nowhere to run that didn't scream consequences. And she still had no idea about the letter waiting inside, sitting on the coffee table, next to the small box labeled for the next man. But she would, very soon. Rachel didn't go to a hotel that night. I thought she might. Thought she'd at least have the dignity to remove herself from the sidewalk and check into one of those cheap chain places near the highway. But no. She stayed, on our back porch, all night, wrapped in that overwashed travel cardigan she always brought to girls' weekends, the one I bought her years ago on a rainy day trip to Chicago. Funny how betrayal always wears nostalgia like armor. Grady watched her for a while. Sent me a text around 1 a.m. She's still outside. Looks like a sad raccoon. I didn't answer. I was too busy preparing the final phase. You see, the letter I left inside wasn't a scream into the void. It was a key, a map, a mirror. I didn't write it in anger. I wrote it the way an archaeologist writes about bones they've dug up. Precise, distant, factual. It was 4 pages long and typed, with bold headers like, here's what you took from me, here's what I knew, and here's what you'll tell yourself. And inside that same envelope, next to the letter, was a second, smaller one, addressed to someone else entirely, Austin Garrett. His full name. I made sure of it. That second letter was Rachel's true gift. It contained a printout of every photo I'd taken of them at the cabin. The wine, the hot tub, the balcony, the receipt for the lingerie she charged to our joint card, and a copy of the DMV report I pulled with a little help from Grady's old roommate, a man who worked night shifts for the county. Why did I include Austin? Simple. Because Rachel always chose men based on their power, not kindness. Not loyalty. Power. She would never feel shame over hurting me. But if Austin saw the full extent of her manipulation, the timeline, the two-faced lies, I'm not ready for anything serious. She likely fed him while kissing my forehead goodbye. That would rip her open. I made sure to have the package delivered directly to Austin's building. Signature required. No return address. No threats. Just truth. By Monday morning, the chaos had begun. I watched from my safe distance as Rachel, hair greasy from a night of porch wind and silence, tried desperately to charge her phone using the outdoor outlet, which I disabled. She finally walked 3 blocks to the gas station just to use the bathroom and asked to charge her phone at the coffee counter. The employee recognized her. Small town. Word travels. When she returned, I watched her pace the perimeter of the house. She wasn't trying to break in. Not yet. She was trying to understand the story. What version of this was true? Was I mad? Was this temporary? Was this some elaborate test? She was still living inside a story where she thought she was the main character. At 10:23 a.m., she made the call. Not to me. To her mother. I don't know what shocked me more. The fact that she actually dialed the woman she hadn't spoken to since last Thanksgiving, or that her mother didn't answer. She tried twice. No reply. Then, after a long pause, she made another call. This time to Austin. And wouldn't you know it, he answered. Not with, "Hey babe," or "What's wrong?" No. His first words, which I heard later through a friend who had access to the call logs, were, "Why did you lie about being married?" Apparently, the packet had arrived. According to Grady, who couldn't stop smirking when he told me, the call didn't last more than 90 seconds. She tried to explain, said something about separation, claimed I was controlling, then unstable. But Austin wasn't stupid. He didn't like being made a fool of, especially not in paper trail form. He hung up. Rachel dropped her phone in the grass and sat on the curb, holding her face in both hands like she was trying to keep it from sliding off. I imagine, in that moment, she realized something important. Not about me, but about herself. She wasn't locked out of the house. She was locked out of every version of the lie she had built. The man she cheated with rejected her. The man she married erased her. Her parents wouldn't touch it. And her friends? The group chat she leaned on like a Greek chorus of bad decisions? They hadn't answered either. Because I sent them something too. Not evidence. Not anger. Just a single message. Rachel won't be coming back to this version of her life. I thought you should know. I always wondered how long it would take her to stop knocking. Turns out, the answer was exactly 42 hours and 13 minutes. That's how long she played nice. That's how long she held on to the delusion that I was just throwing a tantrum, that I'd eventually open the door with puffy eyes and trembling hands and demand to talk things through. She was used to that version of me. The fixer. The forgiver. The husband who'd rather destroy himself silently than dare inconvenience her weekend plans with emotional honesty. But what she couldn't compute, what her ego wouldn't let her accept, was that I'd already grieved her while she still lived under my roof. I had cried into my pillow on nights she pretended to sleep. I had swallowed the pain of her sighs when I touched her. I had memorized the shape of the space she left beside me when she turned away in bed. I had felt her absence long before she ever left. So when she finally broke the silence and did the thing I knew she would, called a locksmith, I was ready. She waited until the third morning. Hair matted, makeup long gone, wearing the same cardigan like it was armor. She must have Googled emergency reentry services, because the guy who showed up had a cheap magnetic sign slapped onto his rusted pickup. Tango lock and safe. I watched from 3 blocks away as he waved, unscrewed the plate, inserted his little tools. He got the front door open in under 4 minutes. She paid in cash. The guy gave her a quick nod and left without asking a single question. Rachel stepped inside our house like she was walking into a crime scene where she was both the victim and the suspect. I don't think she was prepared for how empty it would feel. Not just physically. Yes, most of her things were gone, boxed, or burned, but spiritually, atmospherically. Our home used to hum. It was cluttered, alive. There was always a candle half burned, laundry waiting to be folded, coffee cooling on the windowsill. Now it was hollow. Cold air, clean floors, lights off. Not sterile, but intentional. You could feel the weight of absence in the walls. She walked into the kitchen and found the fridge empty. Even the magnets were gone. She went to the living room and saw the TV was missing. The couch, still there, but stripped of pillows. A single folded blanket sat on the cushion where she once curled up to watch true crime and pretend not to cry at the emotional parts. And then, finally, her eyes landed on the coffee table. That's where I left it. The black envelope, perfectly centered, weighted down by her wedding ring. Not mine. Hers. She picked it up and stared at it for what must have been minutes. Her fingers trembled, maybe from the chill, maybe from the message she was afraid to read. She opened it. And there, on a single page, typed in bold, 14-point font, were 5 short lines. This is the last version of you I will ever speak to. The woman I loved died quietly. Somewhere between your last apology and your first lie you thought I didn't hear. This house is clean now. Please leave it that way. She dropped the page. I watched on the camera feed as her legs buckled. She sat on the floor. Same spot where I once proposed with a ring too small and a heart too big. Same floor where we danced once, barefoot, drunk off cheap wine and delusion. Same place she whispered she wanted kids, back when I believed her. But there was no dancing now. No apology. Just silence. She stayed there for a long time, knees to her chest, rocking like the house might vanish if she just closed her eyes long enough. But this wasn't a dream. This was the end. I made sure of it. You see, I hadn't just deleted her presence from my home. I had deleted it legally, digitally, financially, emotionally. Her name had been pulled from every account, her email blocked, her storage access revoked. Every key she once had, to the bank, to the utilities, to my heart, was melted down into silence. Even the neighbors had been warned not to engage. I sent them letters explaining that she might appear, but to treat her like a solicitor, politely, but firmly ignored. And they agreed. Not because they owed me anything, but because they saw her for what she was, a stranger who took more than she ever gave. So there she sat, alone, in a house that had already mourned her. And I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel cruel. I didn't feel like a man who had won anything. I felt clean, for the first time in years. I didn't watch her leave. By the time Rachel finally stood up from that living room floor, clutching the envelope like it might still change something, I had already closed the laptop. I wasn't interested in her reaction anymore. I wasn't chasing the perfect ending. There was no speech I needed to hear, no apology that would have stitched together what had already burned. She left the house that evening, sometime after sunset. Grady texted me only once. She's gone. House still standing. You good? I didn't respond. I just stood in the kitchen of my temporary rental, holding a cup of lukewarm coffee, and felt, for the first time in a long time, still. Not numb, not angry, just still. The next morning, I drove back to the house. Alone. The key slid into the new lock with a clean click, and when the door opened, I half expected ghosts. I thought maybe her scent would linger in the walls, that the shadows would whisper our past back at me. But no, the house had exhaled her. It wasn't haunted anymore. It was waiting. I walked through every room, touching the corners of walls, running my hand across surfaces, feeling what was mine again. Not just the objects, but the silence, the choices, the freedom. It was mine. I stood in the bedroom, no longer ours, and opened the windows wide. Morning light poured in, dust dancing through the air like it had something to say. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because I felt so light. It startled me. Grief had a shape, but so did peace. And mine looked like an empty bed with clean sheets. I won't pretend I didn't miss her at times. I did. Not the woman who lied, but the version of her I thought was real. The one who used to scribble notes on napkins for me. The one who made me believe we were building something together. But I came to understand something that morning, standing barefoot in a home she no longer owned. I wasn't mourning her. I was mourning who I had to become to keep her. And that man, the one who flinched at her silence, who second-guessed every laugh, who walked on eggshells hoping to be enough, he was gone too. In the weeks that followed, I rebuilt quietly, not with big gestures, just with small, true ones. I repainted the living room, gave away the old couch, started volunteering Saturdays at the dog shelter, got coffee alone without pretending I liked the foam art. I saw my brother more often. We didn't talk about her. We didn't have to. He knew. He'd seen the version of me that came back from the edge and decided to grow something new instead of staring at the wreckage. And then, one Sunday, I met someone. Not at a bar. Not online. At the farmer's market, of all places. She was holding a basil plant and arguing with a vendor about the difference between organic and marketing. I laughed too loud. She looked up, caught me eavesdropping, and instead of giving me a dirty look, she smiled and said, "Well, you buying herbs or just enjoying the drama?" Her name was Marin. She didn't ask about my past. And when I finally told her, months later, carefully, slowly, she didn't flinch. She listened, really listened. Then she said something I'll never forget. Sometimes the fire isn't there to burn you. Sometimes it's just there to light the path out. So no, this isn't a story about revenge. It's not even a story about betrayal. It's about return, not of a person, but of yourself. And if you're sitting on a porch like I once was, wondering how someone you love could turn you into a stranger inside your own life, let me tell you this. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're just being shown the door to something better. And when you finally walk through it, don't look back. Not even once.